Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Expert Speaks. This is a special episode on purchase of agricultural land by NRIs and OCIs. We have done videos earlier on this. Nevertheless, a lot of people ask me for can NRIs and OCIs buy agri land? So we decided we will again do this video all over again, this time taking into account some of the court rulings which has a guidance for people who intend to buy the agricultural land. I have invited today a special guest speaker who is an expert on FEMA law, chartered accountant Mr. Dhanush Bolar. So he is going to take you through all aspects of agri land purchase by NRIs and OCIs. This is NRI Money Clinic for you, and I am Dr. Chandrakant Bhatt, your financial guide for a happy living.
NRI Money Clinic. No hype, just the right advice.
Dear viewers, to talk about the specialized subject of FEMA law and the consequences of purchasing agricultural land by the NRIs and OCIs by suppressing certain facts, we have in today's program Chartered Accountant Mr. Dhanush Bolar. Mr. Dhanush Bolar is partner at Nitin J. Shetty & Co. Mangalore. He specializes in FEMA law related practice. He has solved or guided many people in various aspects of FEMA law violations or in keeping on the right side of the FEMA law. Dhanush, welcome to this episode.
Thank you.
Mr. Dhanush, I know FEMA law is quite vast and it has several aspects to it. For today's episode, let's restrict ourselves to the purchase of agricultural land and the consequences that will follow. Let's try and see from some of the cases which have been heard by the courts and the consequences which followed, which are in the public domain. And let's see whether the audience can take some cues or caution before they buy agricultural land, coming into the influence of all unscrupulous elements who ask them to suppress their NRI status and buy the agricultural land. My first question to you is, before we get started with this, what does the FEMA law say about purchase of agricultural land and the related plantation crops and other things about the purchase of it by NRI community?
See, under the FEMA, particularly the FEMA acquisition and transfer of immovable property in India regulation, and subsequently the FEMA non-debt instrument rules 2019, the NRIs and OCIs are explicitly prohibited from purchasing agricultural land, plantation property, and farmhouse in India. The rationale behind this restriction may be rooted in the government's policy to protect sensitive categories of land that are closely tied to food security, livelihoods, and rural socio-economic stability. These are not treated as commercial real estate and hence are not open for acquisition by person resident outside India. That is mainly the NRIs and OCIs. However, there is an important exception. The NRIs and OCIs are permitted to inherit the agricultural land, plantation property, and farmhouse from a person who was a resident in India or resident outside India, provided the acquisition was made in accordance with the FEMA regulation. Here, no RBI approval is required to inherit such agricultural land. So we have discussed these restrictions and its implications in earlier session, but in today's discussion, I'll be focusing on a significant judicial development, the Delhi High Court's decision in the case of Martin Doss. This case provides valuable insight into how the RBI conducts the compounding proceedings for such FEMA violation and how the High Court assesses the RBI's methodology, particularly regarding the calculation of the compounding fees and the enforcement process. So this real world example highlights not just the legal framework, but also how authorities and courts handle non-compliances when it comes to such a transaction by NRIs and OCIs.
I know of this case of Mr. Martin J.D. Anthony Swami. It was there in public domain. It has been well reported. What was the main issue which followed in case of Mr. Anthony Swami's case of purchase of agricultural land?
He was a US citizen and OCI card holder who had purchased agricultural land in Tamil Nadu back in 2005. So at the time of purchase, he was unaware that such acquisition was not permitted under FEMA. This purchase made in contravention of FEMA provision came to light later, and upon realizing the non-compliance, he voluntarily approached the Reserve Bank of India by filing an application for compounding of the contravention. That's the violation. So here the compounding under FEMA refers to a process of voluntary admitting the contravention, pleading guilty, and seeks resolution by paying a monetary fee in lieu of facing other consequences as prescribed under FEMA. So the purchase price of the land was around 13.68 lakhs. And the primary legal issue was whether the acquisition could be regularized, and if so, what conditions and consequences.
How did the RBI rule in this case?
See, in FEMA compounding proceedings, the first step before levying a compounding fees is to regularize the contravention to the extent possible. So, in this context, the RBI directed the Martin to first divest himself of the property, since continuing to hold the agricultural land was not permissible for an OCI. So regularization in this case meant that the agricultural land had to be first sold to a person resident in India. Because as per FEMA rules, the agricultural land cannot be transferred to another NRI or OCI. So Anthony Swami complied with this directive and sold the land to Indian resident for 1 crore 62 lakhs, thereby rectifying the regularizing the original FEMA violations to the extent possible before compounding could proceed.
What was the consideration price he sold this property?
For 1 crore 62 lakhs, around 1 crore 62 lakhs.
And when did he sell this property?
This is when the compounding application is filed, that is somewhere in 2024. Yes, somewhere in 2024.
So he purchased it in 2005 for a consideration of 13 lakhs and
Yes.
later on divested this property as per the guidelines of RBI for 1.6 odd crore rupees. That's somewhere
Yes.
around 2025. Right.
Yes.
So what happened after this?
Here we'll have to see how the RBI has calculated the compounding fees. So the compounding fees under FEMA is not arbitrary. It is governed by the RBI's master directions on the compounding and the FEMA compounding rules. So while determining the compounding amount, the RBI considered several factors, including the period of contravention, that is from the date of acquisition of the property till the date of regularizations, and the nature of the violations, the amount involved, the manner of funding for acquisition, and any undue gain derived due to this contraventions. So in this particular case, Martin had purchased this property for 13,68,000 and sold it after nearly 2 decades for around 1 crore 62 lakhs. So RBI considers the appreciation of 1 crore 48 lakhs as undue gain derived from the contravention and initially calculated the compounding fee of 1 crore 49 lakhs. However, since FEMA provisions cap the compounding fees to 3 times the amount of the amount involved in the contravention, the RBI limited the final compounding fees to 41 lakhs.
So in this case, Mr. Anthony Swami did not lose money. So the maximum cap which was mentioned in the law came to his rescue.
Yes. Because of that, there is a specific clause in compounding rules which says that the compounding fees should not exceed the 3 times the amount involved in the contravention. So
Now, is there any criminality of action in this involved apart from he was forced to divest this land and then to pay the penalty on this? Is there a criminal offense which will follow in this kind of a cases?
No, this is not a criminal offense. This will be considered as a civil offense. It's not a
Okay, so
criminal offense.
obviously it will go to the courts in that case.
Yes. So in his case, though the national gain was around 1 crore 48 lakhs, the initial computation arrived at a higher figure. So RBI was bound by the law to restrict to the final amount. So accordingly, the compounding fee was capped and settled at 41 lakhs.
Now, when RBI initially put a penalty of 1.49 crores as an undue gain, what did the petitioner do in this case? He paid this amount or he challenged it? What happened?
The RBI finally concluded that the compounding fees is 41 lakhs, but petitioner has challenged this RBI's decisions before the Delhi High Court. So the petitioner, that is Martin, he approached the Delhi High Court challenging the RBI's order, specifically questioning the method of computation and fairness of the compounding fees. However, the court upheld that the RBI's decision and clarified that the process followed by the RBI was fair, reasonable, and well within the framework laid down under FEMA. So the court noted that the petitioner was unable to demonstrate any procedural irregularity or illegality in the RBI's approach. So importantly, the court reinforced the principle that the OCIs and NRIs must remain fully aware of Indian regulatory frameworks, especially when acquiring a immovable property in India.
Mr. Dhanush, we spoke about 3 times the penalty of purchase price. We spoke about divesting of the agricultural land which has been ill-gotten by contravention of the rules and regulation. A third element is undue gain, which has happened because of this activity. While RBI hears these cases, does it always look into the undue gain? See, for example, you purchased for a particular price, sold it for a particular price, resulting in a gain. You would have taken something else or some other route later on. But while deciding on this case, will RBI always look at an undue gain angle to this whole case?
Not necessarily. Consideration of undue gain is at the discretion of the RBI and may vary from case to case. So there have been instances where RBI has calculated the compounding fees strictly based on its compounding matrix as provided in the compounding master directions without factoring in any financial gain arising from the contravention. In contrast, there are cases like the present case, Martin's case, where RBI has explicitly taken into account the appreciations in the property value as an undue gain and used that as a basis for computing the compounding fees. There are also instances where RBI has levied the maximum permissible fees, that is the 300% of the amount involved in the contravention as per the FEMA compounding rules. So this highlights that each compounding proceedings is case specific, and RBI retains the authority to exercise its judgment based on the facts and gravity of the violation.
We know of this particular case, but are there other similar cases which you can quote to say which way these rulings will go?
Yes, there are other decisions, the compounding orders, which similar regulatory consequences. One such case is that of Mr. Jain Nanda, an NRI, who acquired agricultural land in Gujarat. So, like in Anthony Sami's case, the acquisition was found in contravention of FEMA. Upon identification of the violation, he has filed an application for the compounding before the RBI. The RBI directed him to sell the land and imposed compounding fees of 29 lakh 25,000. Here, the purchase cost was 9 lakh 75,000, and RBI has levied a compounding fees of 3 times of the cost, that is 29 lakh 25,000, which was calculated based on the acquisition cost.
Dear viewers, the desire of NRIs to buy agricultural land is very intense. They want to buy agricultural land. How many queries keep coming at our stage and we tell them, don't do it, it's not allowed. In spite of that, somewhere this desire overtakes them and they get into this act of buying agricultural land. One question could be there in your mind. How does it happen when the law doesn't permit? Still, how NRIs buy into agricultural land? I do not know. Honestly, I do not know. Probably what I think is the NRIs themselves suppress their NRI status. They may not declare themselves as NRIs at the time of buying the agricultural land. Probably there could be ignorance at the level of registrations. Probably people around them, it could be family members, it could be the agents, or it could be some lawyers or any professionals could have told them that, look, you want to buy it, you buy it now. Let's look at the consequences when it comes to it. Only when you get caught, that is the time you have to look at it. We will solve that particular problem at that point of time. So in this case, if any one of you who have an intention to buy agricultural land, please resist from such ideas. The consequences are very severe for you to bear with it. 3 times the penalty. You have to sell back the land. And we don't know what are the things that might follow. So whenever you do this, always declare your NRI status. If it is forbidden by the law, as a law-abiding citizen, we should be doing things well within the purview of the law and don't put yourself into unwanted trouble. Mr. Dhanush, with these words, what's your final message to the NRI community when they invest into properties by both NRIs as well as OCIs?
See, for NRIs and OCIs exploring property investment opportunities in India, it is essential to first understand the regulatory landscape. The rules under FEMA clearly distinguish between the types of properties that can and cannot be acquired. Residential and commercial properties are generally permitted, while the agricultural land, plantation property, and farmhouse are restricted. So before making any investment, it is important to check whether the property type falls within the permitted category. So being aware of the applicable rules not only ensures compliance but also safeguards interest. Even though you're NRI, take a help of a professional to decide your residential status as per the provisions of FEMA. So once you are aware of the residential status of the FEMA, then you can decide upon the permissibility of the transaction, whether the transaction is permissible under the extent regulations of FEMA or not. So that's how the NRIs and OCIs to be compliant with the law.
Dhanush, thank you very much for these thoughts and bringing these case studies of decided case on violation of FEMA law in the form of purchase of agricultural land. It's an eye-opener and the consequences are quite severe. Thank you very much for the enlightening the NRI community on the cases which have already been decided. I remain in gratitude to you for your kindness to share your thoughts and time for the benefit of the community in total. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dear viewers, hope this video helped you to understand what consequences will follow in case if you were to purchase agricultural land in contravention of FEMA law. As NRIs, OCIs, you are not allowed to buy agricultural land or receive gifts as well. So if it helped you to understand the finer points, please do give me a thumbs up. Do not forget to share these videos with your near and dear ones, friends and relatives, and on all the social media on which you are connected with. Thank you very much for watching this episode on NRI Money Clinic. I shall be back with you with yet another expert, with yet another thought next Tuesday. Till then, stay safe. Jai Hind.
Press the bell icon for more details and subscribe our channel.